What questions are you most likely to be asked during a postdoctoral research fellowship application interview? Stick around today and let's chat about the top 10 on this episode of Navigating Academia. What's up, everybody? My name is Dr. J. Phoenix Singh, and I want to warmly welcome you to this episode of Navigating Academia, your leading source for guidance on how to be able to advance your career in academia. As always, I appreciate the love, so please do take a second to like and share this video with your friends, with your colleagues, with your students. Subscribe to our channel, hit that bell, because then you're going to get notifications every time that we post new content, and comment below at your leisure. You can follow me at these social media accounts. So, you've passed the first hurdle. You've officially gotten the interview for the postdoc of your dreams, I hope. And if you've gotten that far, congratulations, you deserve a lot of credit. But obviously, you don't want to stop there. You want to ace that interview, and you want to get offered that prestigious position. And as they say, practice makes perfect, but what questions should we practice answering? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about today, is the top 10 most commonly asked questions during postdoc interviews. Now, what I've tried to do for these questions is to word them in such a way that they could be relevant to as many different fields as possible. I'm sure that some of you in some fields, one or two of the questions may not be as relevant, and for some of you, all 10 of them will be extremely relevant. So please bear with me, but let's go through all 10, and I'm going to make a corresponding video that is going to ask you not only these questions, but other ones as well in a mock interview scenario, where essentially I'll ask you the question and then kind of nod my head and make sound effects like, really? Ah, okay. For those 30 seconds, so that you're going to be able to practice providing your responses. And my hope is that you can use that video in a variety of contexts to be able to really maximize the likelihood that you're going to be prepared when the big day comes. So let's go ahead and jump right in with question 1. Question 1 is going to be something very generic, such as, tell me a bit about yourself, or tell us a bit about yourself, depending on whether there's one person interviewing you or multiple interviewers on a panel. Now, obviously, there's no right way to answer this question. There's a lot of wrong ways, but no one particular right way to do it. Some people, try to tell the story of their entire lives. Other people are much more professional, and they literally start with, the work that they want to do during the postdoc, etc. So they just jump deep right into it. Really what you want to avoid doing in answers to all these questions is jumping in too deep, too fast in terms of giving too much information. The general rule of thumb should be that all of your answers should start and stop within 30 seconds. Okay? And you should try to fit in as much information as you can in about 3 sentences, maybe up to 5 sentences, but if you can knock it to 3, fantastic. Keep it straightforward, keep it real brief, and make sure that you give them the opportunity, your interviewers, the opportunity to ask more questions. If you just go on for 5 minutes, their eyes are going to roll into the back of their heads. Nobody's that interesting. So you can do this in one of 2 ways. The first is you can, get to the end of your 3rd sentence, and then there's nothing wrong with asking the question and just saying, would you like me to go on, or is that good? That's it, right? Or, would you like to hear more? That's it, right? That's a good way to be able to put it. And it's all about the tone instead of like, would you like to hear more? No, what's wrong with you? Don't say it like that, right? Questions with an upward inflection or whatever tend to go pretty well, right? So, would you like to hear more? Upward inflection, okay? And the second thing you can do is just keep it brief, and then if the interviewer wants to know more, they'll ask. Just get to the end of it or whatever, and, be done. And then the interviewer could say, oh, that's very interesting. Could you go on about that last point? There you go, fantastic. Then they want to hear more, which is great. Okay, so that's question number 1. You really don't want to do things about talking about, chapter 1, I am born, like just starting at the beginning of your life and this kind of stuff. Keep it professional. Question number 2, tell us about your doctoral dissertation. Could be your master's thesis, but obviously, if you're going for a postdoc, you're going to have a doctoral degree, right? So really, they're going to want to hear about what was this, probably they're going to assume it was a passion project of yours that you worked on as part of your dissertation. And be ready to answer this, just like when it comes to doing your doctoral defense or your viva, as they call it in Europe. You want to make sure that you've got this thing down to a few, like an elevator pitch. Again, 30 seconds. Exactly, give it the premise, talk about the studies, the major outcomes, and then be quiet, right? Unless you want to say something at the very end about implications or future directions. Boom, right? And you can just say, I'm looking to really expound upon that during my postdoc. Okay, stop. Don't keep going and going. Trust me, your dissertation will have been the crowning achievement of your life, probably professionally. At this point, keep it tight. And that can be really, really difficult, but that's question number 2. Question number 3, why are you interested in this postdoctoral position? Make sure that you've done a lot of background research on the postdoctoral program, on the department, the faculty in the department, and have a very clear idea of who you want to be working with in the department, specific things that you want to learn. Maybe there's people, faculty members with specific skill sets. Maybe there's one guy who's amazing at hierarchical linear regression, whatever, right, in the department. Fantastic. Talk about that, and it's one of the reasons you're very interested. Or, you know, during my doctoral program, you know, Professor Smith's work was incredibly influential on me, and I would really like to you know, work with him on such and such a project, whatever it is, right? But really know the people in the department, the reputation of the department, the trends in terms of where the department is going. The department that I did my postdoc in, it was my dream postdoc, and I'm very lucky to have gotten it. But it was something where, during my time there, a lot of the faculty members who were in my specific area left during my postdoc. So it was something where there was a transition, a trend in the department, right? Going away from my topic area, which was forensic risk assessment or predicting the likelihood of violence. Going away from that and going into other areas like substance abuse, treatment, and these sorts of things, and drug courts, which is just as important, but very different from what I was passionate about. So it's important to know the trends in the department, and you can find out about that in a variety of ways. Take a look at recent press releases on, you know, faculty that you really want to work with. Take a look if, you know, they're not even going to be at the university anymore. They could change departments. All kinds of things can happen. Really do your background research before the day of the interview. Question number 4, what skills and experience will you bring to our department? This is the kind of question you're going to be asked for a faculty position like an assistant professorship, for example, so you should get used to answering this kind of a question, right? So think about the skills you have. One of the things we talk about in this series on navigating academia frequently, if you watch other videos, and I sure hope you do, is unique skill sets that you can bring to the table. For example, for me, when I was a doctoral student, I became an expert in something called meta-analysis, which is a very specific kind of research technique, but the articles that are published using it tend to be cited a lot. And that's a great thing for people to learn. And so if there's people in the department who, you know, they really want to learn that technique, but there's nobody in there that actually has been publishing these kinds of articles using this kind of analysis, amazing. You can be that person. You can be that resource. Maybe you've gotten, you know, you've worked on, you know, big grants in the past. You can talk about that. Anything that really makes you unique. Maybe there's a methodology like eye tracking or whatever it may be that you're an expert in. Maybe you're a content expert on something very unique. Maybe you're, you know, doing a legal postdoc and you're an expert in, you know, international mental health law. Whatever you're bringing to the table, really make it clear, again, in a very concise fashion. When they say skills and experience, it's not experience like, you know, when I was in graduate school, you know, one of the things I was really passionate about was karaoke. Obviously, don't say something like that. Keep it really tailored to what you know is going on in that department. Because, again, it's that Barnum effect. If you give something very general, people are going to end up, you know, personalizing it. So, you know, to the extent that you can, talk about, you know, high-level skill sets and then learn specific things about the people in that department and then tailor it to that. Question 5 is one of the most important ones, which is Tell us about the research that you hope to conduct when you're a postdoc. You shouldn't go in and say, well, I'm interested in doing some studies on this and this. You should have some clear ideas of the kind of work that you want to do, and it shouldn't be work that you can necessarily do anywhere. It should be work that could really benefit from your engagement with that department or the people they're in. It's really critical, because otherwise there's no goodness of fit being established. And the other thing here is that the research should be stuff that you can realistically begin during the postdoc, not something where you're going to have to apply for 10 grants, otherwise you have no research ideas that you could actually follow through on. You could talk about, for instance, that you want to finish publishing work from your doctoral dissertation. You can talk about how you want to start several new projects that are like international projects but require very little funding, something like an electronic survey, for example, or like something like a meta-analysis, for instance, systematic review, these kinds of methodologies, or methodologies that rely on existing data sets. Maybe there are data sets that exist with faculty in that department, but you have new analytic techniques that you want to apply to them, or you want to take a look at different hypotheses that haven't been tested yet in the data set and get publications out of those. These are the things to be able to talk about, because if you talk about a project that, again, you either need a lot of funding for, or it's like a 10-year project that realistically will barely get off the ground, let alone result in any publications during the postdoc, it's not really the best fit. That's more of like a very long-term goal. And there's a variety of reasons to do a postdoc, and I'll be sure to link that video that I've made down in the description below to be able to learn what are really the 3 big benefits of doing a postdoc. Question 6 is relevant if you're going to be teaching as part of your postdoc, and this is, what is your teaching philosophy? Some people call it something like, what's your pedagogical approach, right? So pedagogy is essentially, teaching, basically, instructional approach. And this is very important that you really have this, delineated in your mind, really clear it up in your mind. What is it about a certain approach that you like or don't like? How do you like to teach? For example, for me, I use a lot of illustrations, I use a lot of videos, I use a lot of group activities, I use a lot of humor. This is a really critical part of my approach. I'm a big believer in things like projects where essentially people have to show innovative thought. So not just something where I just summarize this. No, I want innovative thought. I really want to push you into what's called your zone of proximal development, which is this concept from this guy named Lev Semenovich Vygotsky. So I would say I'm a Vygotskian, I'm a Piagetian, because I like Jean Piaget, his approach to cognitive development and these sorts of things. So all of this plays into my pedagogy, and make sure that you have that really clear, a clear answer to this question if it's something where you're going to be teaching in the future. And especially if you don't have any teaching credentials, you weren't a teaching assistant, graduate assistant for courses in graduate school, you need to make it clear that even though you don't have that background, that you still have a really clear idea of, the approach that you like to take when encountering students. Question 7 is, what are your long-term career goals for after the fellowship? Make sure that this is really clear. Make sure that it's something where the work that you're doing during the postdoc will, again, probably you've got a really good career trajectory already, but with the postdoc, this thing can take off like a rocket, and you need to really make that clear. Make it clear how it is that your long-term career goals are going to be more easily met by completing the postdoc. So this is the idea here. And even though it's long-term goals, you can talk about, like within 5 years of the postdoc, I want X. And, you can talk about, maybe you want to be an academic, and you can say, very passionate about exploring a career in academia at an R1, so Research 1 university, which is going to necessitate me having a lot of expertise in grant writing and grant preparation. And this is one of the reasons this is such a great fit for me, is because that skill set's going to be critical down the line. And I'm very confident that with this department's outstanding track record of getting grants from large organizations and governmental grants, that I'm going to be very well prepared for my career because of this postdoc and those experiences. Boom, done. Great. That's what I'm talking about. Question number 8 is tough, and this is, why are you the best candidate for the position? ooh, because you don't want to be arrogant, but you don't want to sell yourself short, right? It's never a bad thing to be able to preface it with, I'm confident that there are a number of other strong candidates currently interviewing for this position, but I would say, and usually pick a number. This usually helps you even remember things, right? But I would say that there's really 3 different reasons why I would argue that I am the best candidate for this position, okay? And then just lay out what those are. Could be, goodness of fit with faculty, your long-term career goals, and the skill sets that you're going to get with this postdoc specifically. It could be something about, in terms of like being the best candidate. You could, in this case, bring in something that's more personal in terms of, and one of the reasons that I think I'm, the best candidate as well, is that, I'm going to be here in Miami, close to, my family, my social support system, etc. Because, I grew up only an hour away. It's where my parents are, etc. So my social support system is going to be very strong. And if there's one thing that I've learned, it's that tapping into a social support system is going to maximize the likelihood of someone being productive during their graduate experience, or I believe during their postdoctoral fellowship. So unlike other individuals who, they may end up having personal social contacts and such in other places and have to be Skyping and this kind of stuff, I'm really going to be able to tap into that social resource unlike any of the competitors, and that's going to result in me being the best postdoctoral candidate that you have got under consideration right now. Question number 9 is going to come at the very end, and it's going to be, what else should we know about you? So anything that you have not mentioned thus far, you can mention it there at the very end. But again, really keep it to, I would say, 1 or 2 things. I mean, 3 max, but again, 30 seconds. Keep it brief. Don't have any overlap with answers you've given to previous questions. And maybe there'll be some questions that'll come up, right? Or sorry, some things that you could say about yourself that you haven't had a chance to say, but have been building up during the entire interview. Expect that you're going to have the chance to be able to answer an open-ended question like this. So that's question number 9. And finally, question 10 is going to be the classic final answer, or final question, which is, what questions do you have for us? Never say, oh, I think that's it, I don't really have any questions. No! Have, again, between 1 to 3 questions prepared. Make sure that they're, when I say good questions, there's no such thing as like a best question, but there's a lot of bad questions. You shouldn't ask really personal things about the faculty members who are interviewing you. It's not a good idea. It's better to ask things like that are positive in nature, so also don't ask anything negative. What's your least favorite part about the department? Don't ask anything like that. Or, how's the dean? It just suggests that there could be something really negative. You want to keep this positive language, right? It's human psychology. You keep hearing positive things, you're going to come away with a more positive impression, okay? So, really, figure out 2 or 3 questions, or 1 to 3 questions that you want to have, on your brain, and it's fully possible that during the interview, you'll have a few questions that you haven't had a chance to ask, and this would be an appropriate time to do so. Alright y'all, thank you so much for watching. I want to hear from you in the comments below. Which of all of these questions that we've discussed today are maybe you most worried about answering? If you even want to practice or type out a response that our navigating academia community can look at and give constructive feedback on, that's completely fine. And if you're already done, maybe you've already finished your postdoc, or congratulations, you've secured a postdoctoral position, tell us about your interview experience. Are there any questions that we didn't have in this list of 10 that you were asked that really stuck out? Maybe something weird, or something that was really a big question that's stuck in your mind that you think is really important that our community know about? Definitely post it below. And per usual, if you have any particular topics that you want us to cover in a future episode of Navigating Academia, post those below as well. Don't forget to like and share this video with your friends, with your colleagues, and with your students. Subscribe to our channel and follow us on social media. If you're interested in one-on-one career coaching for everything from how to be able to make extra money as an academic to something like this kind of an interview where we can literally talk through the program that you are going to be applying to and work together to be able to give you the best chance at acing that thing and getting that position, then please do set up a 1-hour consultation call with me via the website below, and let's talk about some opportunities that we could use to work together. Alright everybody, I'm signing off, but have a great day, and don't forget to get out there, take chances, and be your best self. Thank you so much for stopping by, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you here as always. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more in this series on navigating academia, please click on one of these links over here to be able to view more original content. I hope to see you there.